We are now being recorded, and I'm really excited today about this presentation. I've heard about Perusall. When Jenna sent in the request for Perusall, she was the one that kicked off the Perusall thing with Online at JSU in terms of sending in the request to have it added. We actually vetted it, and I was one of the ones that vetted it. And I saw what it did firsthand, and I was like, I would use this in all of my graduate courses. I would use this in all of my courses where there was writing involved. And so I'm very excited to have Dr. Jenna Ridlen and Dr. Ashley Turner here today to talk to us about Perusall. Thank you.
And Jenna, I'll share our slides. I'll share our slides, and if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of get the ball rolling, that would be great.
Sure. So I am Dr. Jenna Ridlen, and I am a Perusall groupie, meaning I did not know about this technology until my colleague, Dr. Ashley Turner, who is right here, showed it to me. So I usually teach senior seminar. I've been teaching senior seminar since I arrived here at JSU. And over the summer, I wasn't able to teach it. Dr. Turner took over that class over the summer and said, hey, I have this technology that I've been using that I think you would dig it. I'm going to show it to you, see what you like. If you like it, great. If you don't, no big deal. And so Ashley introduced me to Perusall, and I quickly found out, oh, hey, not only is this improving the discussion aspect of my course, it is also improving engagement in primary literature, and also the students' enthusiasm about reading primary scientific literature, which those three things alone sold it to me. And I've just really enjoyed playing around with it the last couple semesters and seeing how it works. So that's about me. Go ahead, Dr. Turner.
No, and I'll definitely just piggyback off. My name's Ashley Turner. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Biology. I became introduced to Perusall in my previous teaching institution, and I had a colleague who we always are looking at kind of new ways or innovative ways to kind of engage students specifically in research. And so my lens was trying to see, could this tool be used to engage my students in research? And as Jenna shared, 100% yes. It's definitely opened my eyes and kind of offered a new platform to be able to engage students in scientific primary literature. And it kind of it's like students sometimes often find it very challenging, and it is very challenging to be exposed to primary scientific literature. What I love about this, though, is it really is, and Chris kind of pulled this title, Perusall, the only truly social e-reader. Of course, this is a platform developed by a group of educators and researchers who really have done a really nice job of developing this tool, but it's really, really user-friendly. I hope Jenna and I kind of today encapsulate, you can pick this up and run with it. I literally, Jenna, I think I talked to you about it maybe I think I gave you like a 5-10 minute demo run, and then I shared a course with you that I had used it in, and you were like, okay, I'm using it.
Yeah, it very user-friendly. Not a whole lot of startup information you need to know. The only part that I ended up changing was I got it integrated into Canvas. You don't need to do that. You can use Perusall on its own just fine. And in fact, Dr. Turner has successfully used Perusall without attaching it through Canvas. But I had for a semester used a Pearson product without attaching it through Canvas, and it was a nightmare. So that was when I had submitted all of the information to Online at JSU and to Chris to be like, hey, can we get this approved for use with Canvas and integrated into our LMS? And we did, and it worked swimmingly. And so, yeah, huge Perusall fan.
And I will share, I know Jenna even shared she had hit a couple hiccups. There are a couple of hiccups, so you have to make sure to streamline when you're using the LMS integration. Perusall actually integrates with Canvas, it integrates with Blackboard. There are a number of different platforms it integrates with, but they're a little bitty kind of, if you go to use it and you're loving it and then you hit a hiccup, feel free to reach out to Jenna and myself, or also reach out to the Perusall IT team or the support team. They are super awesome. I had already submitted a ticket or request or question for someone who sent an email to me this past week, and they responded within 24 hours and gave me the answer. So they're really, really responsive as a group. But we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, it's Perusall, and I want to kind of I want to just kind of play around with the chat, but and Jen, if you don't mind, I don't visibly have it. I'm on my big screen, and if you can see the chat, that'd be great. But if anybody can just guess this app, I know like we're playing a game here, but guess the app. Anyone know what this app is? It's kind of like guess that fast food restaurant based on the color, or based on the logo or the color, right? And please unmute yourself. If you feel you're the person who has the correct answer, just unmute yourself and say it.
We have 3 winners so far.
Oh, ding, 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 ding. Okay. So in a Kindle, right? So Kindle really kind of was the breakout app for e-readers. Okay. So for people who love or know the Kindle, maybe they've used some other apps. Anyone know what this app is? This is also another e-reader.
It's not Wordle, at least not yet.
It's not Wordle. No. This one is new and is rivaling with Kindle, but it may not be as well known as the other one. Anybody?
No takers on this one, Dr.
No
Turner.
takers, I know. So this is called Wattpad. So what I kind of want to throw these up for is the social e-reader. Perusall's a platform that's a social e-reader, and just to break it down, we already have had e-readers, right? So we've had a handheld device on which electronic versions of books and magazines, anything you really want to read on, can be read from that electronic device. And again, the point is that it's handheld and it's really easy to move around. And so really, Kindle broke the record with not record, but they're definitely the leading app for having the device, having the app, having everything integrated to where you can read electronically. Of course, this What app now is rivaling Kindle. And now, so the social component really adds the layer, and it really ramped up starting in like 2018. We had a number of changes happening across like access for technology. We had already been pushing textbooks, but 2018 really ramped up, and then COVID hit, and with a change in pandemic, there was really a need for like the social connection. And this is really kind of tied back, and I know Dr. Ridlen and I have discussed this a number of times, that we feel that it really kind of ramped up the need for social reading. So reading that surrounds the experience of reading electronic books, where users can actually share their thoughts on whatever passage, whatever chapter, whatever area that is involving in that media. So I really want to share, and this is really, I think, what this whole group across our GSU campus is what you're going to really enjoy about this, is that it's not just for Dr. Ridlen and myself, Jen and myself in the biology department. It's really a tool that can be used across multidisciplines. The social reading, so there are a couple of social reading apps. It's not so much an e-reader, but you could put it on an e-reader, so the social reading apps, this is Bookshelf, and Gloss is also another big one, and then Bookship. So these are all 3 social reading applications and platforms that kind of are like social media blends, where you kind of have an account and you're reading and sharing things with a community of individuals. So what I want to share with you is Perusall is actually both of those, and that's kind of where we're coming from. And looking at the social reading history, we've already been doing this, and I kind of want to get your thoughts. I know Dr. Ridlen and I spoke yesterday, and we were like, yeah, really, we've already been doing this for years, but like, can anyone think of any other context across our culture and our history that we've actually already been social reading? Like as a group, we've already been socially interacting about what we're reading or talking about, discussing. Any social constructs or events that already take place in what our day-to-day life?
Story time, during the campfire.
Yes, story time is a great example. Whether it's at a childhood level, K through 5, whatever level of yes, story time is a great one. I don't know who said that, but that's a really good one. So story time, yes.
So answer in the chat here, Carrie Kirk says book clubs.
Ooh, and ding, ding, ding. So right on that thread, that's definitely solid book club. And I'll flash some examples. So we've already kind of as a group, kind of started forming around reading and kind of discussing literature. Examples, and you can see it's kind of progressed. Traditional book clubs where everyone reads a book, they get into a coffee shop or they get into a living room and they discuss literature. Those book clubs then moved to online forums and platforms where communities could communicate about their literature. Social media platforms then actually picked it up. You can get into a community reading Grapes of Wrath, whatever book you want to read, and then really e-readers picked up. So there is a history for social reading, and we are ramping up and having different platforms. And this is
another good answer here.
Ooh,
Bible study. So like
that's a great
in
one.
Religious, like sacred text reading together. Yep.
That's a really great addition here in terms of like the traditional meeting in person, having the literature in your hands. But I get that's a really great addition. I need to add this to the slides because in for me, what's interesting is in the progression, is that it's actually changing, right? So we were actually in spaces holding physical literature, right? Holding books. And not that we're not saying we're letting go of books. I know all of us get, like, I love my journal article, right? My printed PDF that I'm reading about a new finding. But we're also evolving in terms of how we actually consume it, because now it's going to, to a little bit more online or even e-readers where we have everything electronic. And even Bibles and biblical documents, and even the Quran, there are a number of different religious texts that are actually now online, that have online options. So I do think across our social reading history, we are going to a lot of online. And this is really where the connection for social reading, and Perusall does this. Perusall does social reading plus classroom. And I really want to highlight, Jenna shared, she's done this. So Jenna, and you can, I know we've done it in different modalities, right? So we've done it asynchronous online, we've done it synchronous online, we've done it hybrid. And you can speak, I don't know all the modalities you've offered Perusall through in your teaching the past year.
Every single kind. So I've done asynchronous online only. I've done it in a class that was more hybrid. And then I've literally had students open up Perusall together when we were in the same classroom space. And we were both talking on the computer and also back and forth together. And one of the ways that you all are going to get to see this program and how it looks. But one of the cool functionalities is when you print off a primary resource or primary literature for the class, you are never sure if everyone's on the same page or if everyone has the right thing right in front of them. When you have this website that you go to, everyone sees everyone's comments. Everyone sees everyone's thoughts, and everyone is really literally on the same page about where we are in the text and what's being discussed.
And I think, Jenna, that is one of the most attractive parts of us using it as a tool to engage students in scientific literature. Because if you can imagine, it's like everybody holding the same PDF and having their own highlighter and being able to highlight and comment. And we also, and I go back, so we put two pictures here for a specific purpose to say that you could use this as an in-person classroom to engage students. You can do it a hybrid, you can do it completely online. There are so many different ways to use this, but it's really a versatile tool in the classroom. And what Dr. Ridlen, what Jenna just, you kind of pushed me. So we're taking our stance on a biology department, right? Are using it in our biology courses, but we've really been using it to dive deep into primary scientific literature. And so all the biologists in the room and all the scientists in the room, we all, and the artists in the room and the English professors in the room, we all have our way that we think about diving in our literature. And so for a scientist, when you think about, diving into the literature, think about what that would look like for you and what you would need, what tools you would need to do so. If you don't mind, if someone just wants to type in the chat, like, do you have to have your red pen? Do you have to have your coffee? Do you have to be sitting in a coffee shop? What are the tools that you need to dive into your literature? And if we have fellow scientists in the space, put what you would need to actually dive into your literature. And I'll give an example on the next slide. But this is when I go back to thinking, if I was going to, how, and it's actually making me think how I even use this for our research group, the research group that I work with, in regards to even me consuming scientific literature different as compared to how I have in the past.
Pencil, highlighter, and hard copy of article.
Yes, 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 yes. And on the next slide is that big old, I mixed the order up. There goes that big fat highlighter, right? So there goes the big chunky fat highlighter. Everybody has their favorite color. I would use yellow, Jenna would use orange, whatever, right? We pick our favorite color. And so then you have that printed hard copy, right? You have that very, very, very printed hard copy, and then you're going to start questioning. You may be writing in a margin, you're going to have a highlighting. So in looking, but let's think about this. So we're going to go back and we're going to say, let's say I'm teaching this genetics course. So I teach BY322, which is a genetics undergraduate course. There's approximately 40 students, and I'm going to assign them this article. This is an article that came out of a research group that I was collaborating with at UAB that we basically published with undergraduates. So if you look at this article, and I'm going to give this to 40 undergraduates and tell them they need to read it. And then they're going to come back in next session and we're going to discuss it. Okay, so in the chat, if you don't mind, put the percent on average you think students actually, as an undergraduate, the percent you think that students actually read the article. So if they were given a scientific article, and this is this is an average taken across a number of different classes, so I'm just making it be specific for biology, but what's the percent of students that you actually guess or think based on your personal class, whatever, that actually read or engage with that article or that chapter or that textbook or a play, whatever context your literature is? What percentage? And please feel free to unmute yourself as we guess this amorphous number. 20%, 50%, 75%, 2%.
So in the chat here, Ashley, a lot of guesses of 10 to 20%. I actually guessed 25, but I'm going to be generous and say most will skim it. You know, most will read the title, maybe like skim the abstract just so they can keep up with the discussion in class and not totally be lost.
And man, we are really good at knowing this. We know this. So this is exactly what's reported across a number of different studies looking at surveys for students to ask, and what Jenna is describing as skimming. And so about 20% of our students, when they're assigned a reading in whatever context, will actually skim. And then, of course, if you took that 20% and broke it down, skimming versus reading, of course, that's going to break down even further. But about 20% of our students actually engage in reading when they are assigned that assignment. And again, if you go back, if they dug a little bit deeper, they got to see a really cool cyclops zebrafish, right? But they may not even get past the title. They may not even get past the title to actually be able to get to the really cool science. So our students often feel a little bit blocked. They feel that they need to print the paper. They got to get a highlighter. They got to get a pen. That's what they've got to do. So what Perusall does, and again, this is what we're thinking about, right? We said highlighter, printed copy, pen. And then, of course, this is how they really feel, right? Because they read the first sentence of the paper. And in reading the first sentence of the paper, then they've got to go look up 8 different terms to understand the first sentence of the paper. And, you can pop in the, please share your thoughts too in regards to how your students interact with their literature, if this is common across, because I hear this in regards to political science. I hear this in regards to even like old English text. There can be words that are different in context across generations. So our students sometimes feel overwhelmed. And what Perusall does, and this is the image that we came up with for connectivity, but it really creates a space for everyone to be holding the same printed PDF. It creates a space for everyone to be holding the same copy. And so when Jenna's reading one area and she really likes a section, then she can flag it, right? She can say, hey, I love this. And then I can go in and I can unmark hers. So I can't unmark it where I'm looking only at the naked copy and I'm not influenced by others. But I can also turn those comments on and go, ooh, she thought that was important. So then maybe let me look into that, and maybe Jenna posts a question and okay. So really very quickly in a classroom of 40 students, we now don't have 40 students who are reading a paper alone. We have 40 students who are reading a paper as a class, or we could have students reading a paper as a group of 4. So 40 students, we've got groups of 5. You can have students reading in groups of 5. It really opens up the platform and the space in the learning environment for students to be connected. And that really goes back to, they don't have to all look up the same term, right? To get it, everybody's redoing the wheel. If someone's reading first initially, students can actually learn from others who've already exposed to the literature. So I do think this is just an example. Jenna and I are going to dive into some example courses. We're going to show you what LMS integration looks like. We're also going to test course you, so you're going to get to look at it and be in a test course. But this is a snapshot, and I think this is updated. Yeah, this is an updated version. I had one earlier, Jenna, that I actually updated this slide. This is just what Perusall is going to look like. We're going to take you to Perusall in just a second, and I'm going to drive on my end while we kind of work through the test course. But this is what it's going to look like. So you have the document in the middle. You have your dashboard onto the left, very similar to like an LMS system, and then you have a thread box, which is going to pop up on the right side. And so in theory, you're looking at this document, and right now, looking at this document, I can visually see there have been 3 different people who've actually read through this area and commented on those highlighted areas. So the blue document is a person, the blue highlighting is a person, the yellow highlighting is a person, and then the orange is another person. And you can see off to the right, they have their sections that they've commented on. So it really opens up the literature. I will give you a hint. Jenna mentioned earlier, this is one of our favorite aspects. And Jenna, do you want to walk through this slide? I know this is just amazing. This is really the versatility of Perusall from the professor and the instructor side. This is just mind-blowing that this does this metric.
So we all like grading that is easy and that is what we consider set it up and it does it on its own, right? So this is going to be the feedback that you get from Perusall on your students' engagement with the material. So you give, at the very beginning of the class and at the beginning of each assignment, you give Perusall parameters, and you say what those parameters are going to be in terms of a score. So let's say the highest score you can get is a 4, and the lowest score you can get is 0 points. And 0 points is you've never opened Perusall, you haven't looked at the paper at all, you have engaged 0%. All right, so then you get these, you set some parameters, you say, all right, I would like 80% of my score to be the students asking 5 questions. They have to write at least 5 comments or questions in the thread. I want another 10% of my score to be students responding to other students, so interacting with other students' comments. And I want the other 10% of my score to actually be either the percentage of time that they spend reading, like on the screen itself, reading and scrolling through it, or how far they get down the article. Perusall keeps track of how long the student is reading, how much time passes when the student is scrolling, how many highlights they make in the text, how many comments they make in the thread, how many times they like or interact, including to responding to other people's questions. And it actually even shows you how far through the article they've read. So like if they spend 20 minutes on it, did they scroll all the way down to the bottom of it? Or did they just have that screen up for 20 minutes, things like that.
And Jenna, you mentioned the like button. So the like button is that also called upvoting. I just want to mention that term because upvoting means that you've liked something. So when you get into the system and you start working with it, the like she's talking about, students can actually like comments. That it's called upvoting. And then as an instructor, you can also upvote, and it lets students know that you upvoted. So it's kind of like, ooh, the student thought that this was good, and then the professor. So you kind of got like interaction as a social context within that article as well.
Then on the gradebook, you float over the student and it will give you all the stats. It'll literally for every student show you their comments in one place. It'll show you how much time they spent reading the article, and it'll give you different statistics on the student itself. Now this it will also give you class statistics. So you can see this is composite class statistics that about 75% of the class completed the assignment with the maximum score, in our case, which would be 4. 11% didn't submit any work, almost 12%. And then there's that little group in the middle that completed some, but without a maximum score. It's really smart. You know, Perusall platform, it is an intelligent platform. It takes into consideration word count of how many words the student is using in order to interact with the text. And also it takes into consideration the content of their comment. So I'll just share a little kind of pitfall that I ran into this semester. I had a lot of students who were being a little bit not putting as much effort as they could into
they're trying to game the system.
Right. They weren't looking up words they didn't understand. So they would just say for their question or their comment, their question would be like, what does antipyretic mean? Or what is meant by synchronous? Or, you know, like I'm blanking on terms. And so we had a conversation as a class after I saw that so many of them had done that for their questions. I was like, hey, we can't ask definition questions, but I didn't actually even need to do that because Perusall had already downgraded them for the simplicity of those questions. And it reflected in their score for the assignment.
And Jenna, I'm sure everybody on the back end is going, well, how does Perusall do all this, right? Because you just said that Perusall can take into account the content quality of the students come in, and it's actually through artificial intelligence. So their algorithms are actually an AI-based system, and you basically go in on the back end and put what you want the students, basically what you want the student to get from your students, and it actually has built-in parameters for screening reading time, scrolling time, comment quality. It's amazing. But so, for example, we just said earlier that in any class you'd expect 20% of students to have read it. But now let's rethink this. When you ask the class how many people read it or how many of you guys got time to read it, I bet we get a little bit higher than 20%, right? So we actually have students knowing that they should have and maybe they didn't. So, but I go back to like really looking at knowing, like you can know as an instructor if the student engaged with the literature. And so it's very powerful, I feel, to be able, and it's really, I go back, it's really a platform to engage students, but as an instructor side of you, it's also a way to know if they've engaged with it, not just, oh, I saw a copy on their desk and it was highlighted. If you flip that first page, I bet it's the only page highlighted, right? So it's really trying to force them to, and actually engage them with going past that first title page, like really going deeper into the content. I think at this point, Jenna, I think we'll come back to this slide. I think we should just jump into the test course. Don't you? Is this a good point you feel?
Yep.
Do you want to field questions? I know we were talking about possibly taking a pause for questions maybe at this point.
I would say show them the test course first, because a lot of the questions will be answered when you actually see how the course works.
That's okay. Perfect. Get your feedback. All right. So what I did, I actually decided to not upload your article yet because I wanted to show them through this.
Oh, sure.
So I could actually show them how to upload the article that we're going to do as a test course in real time. Okay, so I just want to drop this link in the, well, Jenna, do you mind doing this really quickly since I'm sharing my screen? Do you mind sharing this Perusall website? It's just perusall.com.
Yep.
Yeah, perusall.com, just for people who want to click and not have to type. This is the website. When you go to it, this is what you're going to get. And anybody can create an account. It's free. So you just go to the login, create account. I created it with my JSU email. That way it would be a little bit more user-friendly on my back end. So students would see my name and my email to JSU. So I just kind of created this for my professional use. I could go in and create one for my personal use. I would probably still use Perusall over another social e-reader just because it is so amazing. But I actually am using this for a number of platforms, not just in my classroom, but in my research space with my students. So you can go here. And when you create an account, feel free to go ahead and do so if you want to. You don't have to in this moment. Let's just pause for a second. So what we're going to do, I'm going to show you, I've logged in. So this is me logged in on Perusall. And what you can see, you've got a lot of options. It looks pretty much like This is not your standard LMS view yet. I will show you what it looks like when you get into a course, but this is what the home page looks like. If you just create an account, it will be empty for you. I have a couple of archived courses. I also have a Perusall test course set up for us to look at, but this is kind of the starting point, if you will. And I will just click and add an article and just kind of show you what the Perusall test course looks like. But once you kind of, this is so easy to use, and I really stress this. I'm not a person who will quickly adopt stuff if it's beyond my means or beyond my bandwidth with regards to kind of revamping a course. But this was something I was teaching a couple of courses at UAB, and as soon as my colleague told me, I threw it in the course the next week. I literally threw it in the course the next week because it was that powerful in regards to, for me, where if I didn't know students were reading, and I knew that students were reading and they didn't understand, and I couldn't see that, and I can't spend time with them outside at a coffee shop all the time, right? Or in the cafeteria. So for me, it was a really, really easy add for the classroom. But I'm going to click on the Perusall test course, and when you do so, you are actually given a platform. This is inside the course itself. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to have you guys enroll in this course right now. So you're going to basically create an Perusall account and enter the course code. So at this time, if you guys are wanting and willing, feel free. You can be passive and just note it down. You don't have to do it in this moment. But if you have a couple people who are wanting to add it right now, this would be super nice for you to kind of be able to play and plug while we're doing it live. I will see if I can copy. I know, Jenna, you won't be able to copy this. I'll try to pop this in the chat really quickly. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. So there is the passcode. Let's see if it comes up on your end. Yeah, there we go. So when you create a Perusall account, you will create a Perusall account and it'll ask you for your email, and then it'll say, would you like to join a course? And you can literally type in Turner HY7BE and then press enter, and you'll be added into this test course. And even if you're not able to, I'll give a couple minutes. Even if you're not able to, we can totally still work through it, and kind of Jenna and I can play around with it and be like, hey, to show you kind of how it works. And feel free to ask questions too if you have. Feel free to unmute yourself or drop it in the chat. Oh, look at us. Dun, 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 dun. We got 3 people in. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Jenna. So we have 3 members to our class. Whoop, whoop. Yep. So it's really easy to get students in. Now, this is me, FYI, this is me using Perusall outside of the context of Canvas. Canvas is even easier because your Canvas, you don't even have to do this with students if you're integrating. When you integrate through Canvas, it automatically pushes your role and gives them a Perusall account. And so you don't even have to do this. This is if you're wanting to use it outside. And we decided to do this method because then you could engage with it right now through this without having to set up a Perusall test course within our Canvas shells right now. And I know Jen's like, we don't want to mess our Canvas shells up. But we're doing this kind of as a kind of an outside context. So we have 3 students in. Whoop, whoop. Okay, so we're going to let these 3 people. If you're passive on the backside, totally, I'm that person sometimes too. Just know this is how simple it is to get students into a class if you're wanting to use it. And maybe you say, hey, let me just try it out first before I integrate into Canvas. There's so many different ways you can use this. But so you're in this class now. What I'm going to do, so you go back to the getting started, really the tabs that you're working with are getting started, library, assignments, and students. And those are really the top 4 tabs. I'm going to go ahead and act like that my students are here. Oh, we got another. Oh, do we have Carrie earlier? Or is she a new addition? Is Carrie new?
Carrie's new. Welcome, Carrie.
Welcome, welcome. So you go to the library, and this is really where you start building your conglomerate of your literature. And so I know Jenna and myself, we're dumping primary literature articles in here. I attended a conference last year that Perusall hosted, and I heard individuals saying that they were dumping in play drafts for like different musical productions, and they had their students documenting, like literally they were using it as kind of like a brainstorming space for their play, like their productions. They would drop a document in, and so listening to all of the different ways that this can be used, you can imagine you can drop anything in here. You can drop a book, a web page. Dr. Ridlen, have you used it in any other? I mean, I know we talked about PDFs amongst me and you very heavily. Is there any other documents you've used it for in particular?
No, I have considered using a textbook though.
Ooh, okay.
In the future, especially for an intro class, because I think probably, and I will need to follow up with the bookstore about this, but I think there's probably a way. Our students oftentimes prefer ebooks anyway. There's a nice way to have your textbook for a class be an ebook that is then just totally synchronized into Perusall.
And I know that response only because I had Sarah who asked the message about through Teams previous. So as long as you're not doing a first day book, and you're required to use your text through first day, you can definitely get this straight through Perusall. The hiccup comes from where if you have to use first day through Barnes and Noble, that's not something that they can roll on to Perusall. But what Perusall will do, and this is just the discussions that can take place across different departments, but Perusall will give you a 14-day free exposure for your students. So they're kind of creating a free pass, if you will. If that's what you're having to do, they're going to say, hey, we're going to give you 2 weeks free at the beginning of that semester for you to kind of fulfill that free first day pass kind of program. Sarah was interested in using it for her English or for her courses, and she wanted to know, oh, well, will it work with First Pass? And I reached out to the bookstore last week and then emailed Perusall. That's what the question I told you about that I got such quick response back. Within 24 hours, they were like, well, we have not worked with that program before. We will offer 14 days, but we can they're willing also to communicate with bookstores. So they're super friendly on that. But I will tell you, you can put anything. You can even put student work. This is a new function that actually just got released last week. You actually can have a student upload folder. So you can have this folder where students will upload drafts. So if you can imagine you're in an English class, right, and you have these first drafts and second drafts and third drafts of these essays that they're composing, you can actually have them drop their documents into this folder, and they will then be annotating and providing peer review on assignments. So this just came out last week. I was playing around with it, and I was like, oh, this is a peer review function. So the usability and the updates on this thing, I mean, Jenna, this didn't even, I don't think I even told you about this. This is new, and they're constantly updating what's available. So I'm going to go ahead and just dump. Now pay attention to this one. This is super easy. You literally just dump whatever you want onto the screen. Okay, so there it is. It's going to upload now. But this is an article that we're going to show you and kind of engage you with, the 4 students we have. Oh, hold on. Let me see if I have any more students. Hey, we got some more students. We got Chris in now. We got, yes, and we got Dr. Warfield. I see Dr. Warfield here with us. Oh, we're populating like crazy. That's awesome. So this library is where you will dump your content. So the thing is once the content's dumped, you have to create an assignment. Okay, so there is another hitch. You don't just add content and start going at it, right? And Jenna can kind of add in on her process. I think we're working kind of in the same process, Jenna, just because we are coming at it from the same application. But I typically add my content into the library, and then I'm adding assignments to it. And then I have it integrated with Canvas. I know Dr. Ridlen has experience, but it pushes it. It pushes the assignments over to Canvas. And we're going to wait a second. It's actually uploading now. It'll take 2 seconds. It's probably a PDF thing.
I have had this happen too before, where it like takes a minute, and sometimes if I just do it again, it goes faster. Like if I cancel it and do it again.
Yeah.
But it usually is not that long. Yeah. So just in terms of using this in the classroom, what Dr. Turner said is really important. You need to put it in the library and also make it an assignment. Last semester was the first semester I used Perusall, and that was an early mistake that I made. Was I just from the library started highlighting on it and asking questions and things, and that won't integrate with Canvas. Like you have to make an assignment. That way you can get all of the statistics and you can get all of the just all of the information in the grade book about what the students are actually doing?
Because the library doesn't get integrated to Canvas. So what gets integrated to Canvas are the assignments and the grades for those assignments, and then it attaches to the students. So whether you're coming in from the back end, like you're integrating through Canvas, or you're just using it as a standalone program, the standalone program, you may end up, if you're going to end up using a standalone, I did that. All I did was just take those numbers and pop them into Canvas. So, I mean, it was a little bit more. It can be just as fluid. But of course, Jenna, we have bad, I'm sure we have bad connection this one day that we're doing this.
I know. I would click out of it and click back in. That's my solution. Try that. And if that doesn't work, courses. I already have it loaded.
Oh, like okay, great.
In a class that I can show you.
I gotcha. And you can take the control if you have it. I wanted to show them how, just because it's that easy. It's literally drag and drop, and it can be a PDF, a book, a web page. And it takes a little bit. It depends on the size and the connectivity you're working with. They usually load faster than this. This is not a beefy one either. I've had some PDFs where it's like, come back later, and it'll be pinwheeling. And I'll try one more.
Just 1 second, and I'll take.
No, you're good. You're good, and you can kick me off if you get it. I don't have this particular article, so if you want to share this would be great for. But I mean, I have example classes, but I don't have this particular article.
So I'm actually here. Give me 1 second.
But what's also cool is when you're looking at the PDF itself, and I'll kind of go ahead to assignments. I'll kind of push to assignments here. When you have your library populated with your documents, whether it's articles or whether it's you're pulling in from a book, from their catalog, you see that on the left. The assignment then's initiated, and to do so, you just literally add assignment, right? So you click, and of course it won't let me because I don't have stuff in my library yet. But when you go to add assignment, the next the process is actually assigning it to students, setting a due date, and then setting the parameters for, do you want the students to read all of the article? Do you want students to read, you can actually assign them particular sections. So it takes the article and really makes it a foldable assignment to where you could assign them the first part one day, the second part the next day, and actually chunk it. So for example, a scientific article, you could actually show it to where they are doing the intro one day, they're doing the methods, the materials and methods another day. It really makes it kind of a foldable assignment. Now you don't have to do foldable, but it has so many options. I'll go back to my library. Oh, haha, we've got progress. If you don't have it on your side, Jenna, it's just slow to upload.
Hey, Chris, can you give me control? It says my request for control was not accepted.
Oh no, let me see if I can give you that, or Chris, you might be able to do, I know Chris, he's the organizer, so he will probably be able to do that.
No, it's not from me. It's whoever has control at the moment.
Oh, let me do it again then. Maybe it'll just pop up here. What are you all seeing right now? Do you see my screen?
When you give someone control, what that means is that they can move their mouse on your screen.
Oh, never mind. So I asked to share my screen. Has it popped up at all?
Not on my end. It might be sharing. Is it your screen, Jenna, or my screen? I think it's your screen. Yeah, it's your screen. It's your screen.
It shows assignment senior seminar.
Yep.
There we go.
Okay. All right, everyone can see this?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Holler at me. So this is great because I'll just show you the Canvas integration as long as we're here. So this is my senior seminar class that's on Wednesdays. And here are their homework assignments. And these homework article 1, 2, 3, and 4 down here are all hooked in with Perusall. So here's our first one. This is actually the same article. And participate in our Perusall discussion on our first article. This is actually the phase 3 study of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine trial. This is kind of like our example Perusall that we do together, and then I kind of let them run with it. So this assignment, I made it worth 4 points, and you have to interact with the Perusall article by highlighting text and asking and answering at least 5 questions. I add questions to get started, and then they ask their own. So then I launch Perusall, which goes very quickly from here. You can see that I have 4 articles for senior seminar. I try to pick articles for each of the different biology concentrations. So this one's more pre-health, this one's more of an ecology one, it's behavioral ecology. I have one that's more molecular biology as well. But here's Perusall Article 1, and I'm looking at the assignment. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. All right, so here you can see New England Journal of Medicine. This is like the pinnacle mammoth of particularly medical research throughout the world, and especially in this country. It has an impact factor of over 90, which is like the highest impact factor of any journal. One of the benefits to the biological sciences during the pandemic has been that most COVID research has actually been made free. So all of the paywalls have dropped around COVID research, which has made it super helpful. This particular article was published in December of 2020 and was actually published after the vaccines started to be distributed to healthcare workers. They obviously had this ready to go and ready to print and publish, but publishing actually took longer than Operation Warp Speed did, that had already like moved forward with this science and this information. Okay, so what you can see here, so this is excellent. So this is all of the conversations that I've had with my class about this article. Each one of these is connected to a particular highlight. And if I float over here, I can see who's talked to this. This is a question. Why not choose a wider age range? And then 4 replies. This one has some questions about the placebo. This one has questions about the vaccine efficacy, etc. You also, so Perusall can tell who is highlighting things earlier in the article, meaning maybe they didn't read as far down, as opposed to who is highlighting later in the article, which you can tell folks have read throughout the entire thing. You can interact with the text. You can interact and highlight the charts. Can't highlight that much at once, but you can highlight the charts and the chart information. You can also highlight, because I remember I put down, we do a lot of talks about credibility, scientific credibility, and also disclosing financial contributions. And so specifically in this one, we talk about how this research was supported by the biotech firms that ended up selling the vaccine itself. So yeah, okay, so let's see. When injected at this, so this is a question about 21 days apart. So this is a question about the protocol itself. So this person asked, when injected at this interval of time, does it lead to the best results? What if the interval was changed, and would that affect the outcome? And then we had a student respond, if the interval was changed, increasing it for too long or waiting too long for the second dose, it would decrease. And then they're talking about the interval. And then, so science, right? I created a new rule that people who pose questions in Perusall, I ask them to also respond to their question. So if you ask an I wonder question about the literature, I also want you in my class to propose a response. Like, I wonder what would happen if this. I want them to give a hypothesis, right? They're all scientists. I want them to give a hypothesis about what they think would happen if their wonderment came true.
And Jenna, I have that same plug. I know we shared yesterday. I kind of have that same plug. If you pose a question, and you do the same thing, we tend to have one student drive the discussion on a particular paper. And so we'll have a person who's over that paper, if you will, and they kind of are driving it. But if they ask a question and no one answers it or whatever, they have to go back around and kind of fill it in, because it's, and I let students drive the instruction, but I also take part in it. So I'm reading it, I'm looking at it, I'm upvoting, and providing feedback, and they're able to see my thoughts as well as each other's. And so really we're holding the same PDF. It just blows my mind. You're really holding the same PDF, or you're viewing the same PDF, if you will, all highlighted.
So here I ask a question. This is one of my starter questions. What are the phases of a clinical trial? Look on Google. Can you find the results for the phase 1 trial for this particular vaccine? And then I had someone answer, and this is correct, the different phases of clinical research and what they are testing for, and then the results of the phase 1 trial for this. However, not this class, another class though, or maybe it's another place actually in this article itself, I had a student actually link to the previous phase 1 study. So, and then I had another student who used that link to do an oral presentation on the phase 1 study. So that was kind of cool. You can upload links. I'm a little snarky sometimes. And so for some of my students who the first time they did this, they just asked like, what is randomly assigned mean? I would Google randomly assigned, and I would put up the website of what randomly assigned meant, and I would just drop the link in the chat so that they could click on it and look. But you can also put links in there. You can put photos. So you can insert images, which is kind of cool. You can insert video. And then you can also make your comments anonymous. And students have this opportunity as well, especially, I do think sometimes in all classes, there is a hesitancy to talk if you think that you are going to be looked on as asking an ignorant question or a stupid question, or like, why would you think that sort of thing? And sometimes it's helpful to put on the anonymous.
You can change that. Yep, you can change it and make it be to where they're asking anonymous.
And you can have it anonymous, and I believe you can still have it that graded for them.
You
just don't know don't know what they're asking.
Correct. And it goes back to they've created so many levels for students to actually engage, even if you don't want anyone to know who you're asking, right? So you put a question out there and you may not know. There are levels that students can pick from when you're the user. So Jenna's showing her user now. You can put that you want it to be anonymous or posted to the whole group. And so either way, it's still graded on the back end through Canvas for that student. So it just is phenomenal.
Ashley, I'm just looking at the time. It's 3:30.
Yeah.
How long's our time, Chris? Are we good?
We can pop back. We have a minute, and we can end on this slide and ask questions. We've had a lot of not tech issues, but literally the PDF still uploading for the test course. But I do want to end on this slide. I will share with you Perusall, the platform itself, offers a slew of training opportunities. If this is something that you're wanting to use in your classroom, and this obviously we just wet your whistle, we're just showing you how it can be used. They have a spring webinar going on currently, and you can click on this link. I'll drop the PDF and the slides in just a second in the chat. But the webinar, totally attend. There's a Perusall 101, a Perusall 102, and then there's basically also an Instruct the Instructor. And Chris, you may want to hop onto that one because it really from the lens of an IT person or someone working in admin to help assist faculty in helping kind of know how to use Perusall, and maybe the Q&As that happen when, integration doesn't happen with Canvas clearly, but feel free to look at that, and also look at the Perusall Exchange. This is the conference that I attended last year over Perusall, and it's really where I became, I knew I was using it, but I didn't actually know how everybody else was using it across disciplines. If you're kind of wanting to be exposed to that, they have this event. It's free. It's usually virtual. They were hoping to hold one in person, but it's still virtual this year. So feel free to take part in that. And again, references, but definitely reach out to Dr. Ridlen and myself. We've been using it in different, all in biology, of course, but it's really user friendly. It can be incorporated and integrated into any course. And I think that, Jenna, that wraps us up pretty good. I know we're kind of pushing for time. That's why I was like, we'll just end on that.
It does. We have one more question from our librarian, which I think is a fantastic one. So Paula asks, do they address copyright for articles from the library's vendors? So specifically for articles that are, let's say, not open access.
So the articles you can upload. So as a person, you can upload articles of your own content, which means you'd be uploading a PDF that you have access to, right? So when you go to like for example, scientific article. But when you're looking at copyrighted stuff, they have a bookshelf, a library that's actually pulling from things that already have that copyright in place. And I'm guessing, is this question coming from Paula? Yeah, this question is coming from Paula. I only guess because I know how her mind thinks. They have that built in on the bookshelf side. So what I would recommend if you were an instructor trying to pull in something, I would recommend to check their bookshelf first. And I'm dropping the PDF of today's slides in the chat as we speak. Let's hope we have faster upload than the PDF on the test course. Oh, it hit. Man, see, it must be something with Perusall today on their back end for slow. So there are the slides from today. Feel free to take a look at those. We do have a slide in there that we put kind of tips on how to use Perusall successfully in the classroom. And Jenna and I kind of thought about that and kind of popped some stuff on there. One thing I recommend is to use a low stakes reading assignment. So maybe you use your syllabus. Maybe you pop your syllabus up and have a PDF of your syllabus up where students actually engage with the syllabus itself. So letting the students use it for low stakes assignments before you really kind of build in at a bigger assignment. But Paul, that's a great question about the copyright. I would recommend to start with the bookshelf first, and it pulls from online sources. It pulls from a lot of different things. If you're not able to find it there, you can upload something, right? If you upload something that you've been able to download, that's actually copyrighted on the document itself, right? So you have access to that. But if it's not open access, you still as a user have access. You just need to check and see if it's available on their bookshelf. But again, if you're questioning any of this, 24 hours was the time frame that I got the response on the first day program. They have an amazing support team. In the PowerPoint, I included a link for their support. Feel free to just shoot them an email. But like I said, as you start using this, it's definitely a platform that's usable, and I love it. I will continue to use it. Like I said, Jenna and I I was like, hey, let me share this. And she was like, oh, it's really, really easy to use, and I love it.
Easy.
I'd like to ask one of you about the Canvas integration at some point, or is there a resource through Perusall? Mike, you can do both, totally. There's a PDF, actually, let's see if I can pull that PDF. There's an LMS integration PDF that I have that I can drop in from some of my trainings from the workshop that I attended. I attended the conference last year and they just hit us with 15 million resources. I'll pull one really quickly, Mike, and drop it into the chat. He's asking about LMS integration. Yes, I will drop it. But you can also feel free, Mike. You can totally ask me and Jenna. Just snag us. We'll talk. Jenna was mentioning she had some issues with integration, so it would appear in her text in her Canvas as like a question mark or a little bubble. I think a red spot, Jenna, or something. More than likely, the title doesn't match. So you have to make sure.
It corrected when I changed the title.
Yes. So, and those are the little QCs that if you're using it, it may, but the title has to match in Perusall 100% to the title that you create in Canvas. Those have to match 100% or it won't push over properly. So little things like that, along with, usability. But I'm going to drop that PDF really quickly. I can snag it. And then I think we're done. I know we're over a little bit, but it was really, really good. You guys had some good questions. Let's get that. And just show in the box how many people want to use Perusall. Yes, no, what class? Maybe yes and no, and maybe the class you're wanting to use it for. Oh, Chris wants to. Chris, what would you use it for?
Well, right now I'm actually teaching the graduate nursing department has a course that's on instructional design.
Ooh.
and online learning in nursing, and there's a lot of reading in there, so I would use that in there.
It's a great one. Okay, you're gonna laugh. I'm gonna have to share that at another time. So I have a PDF that's over and I can pull it too. Let me go back to Perusall's website. So it's what I have currently handy on my fingers is the scoring rubric. I can actually drop that while I'm doing that. I found the scoring rubric, which is what they provided through a PDF. This basically walks you through, if you're a person who wants to know where the data is coming from, how they actually calculate their scores. I'm going to drop this in the chat. This is kind of their algorithm on the backside. And we didn't get to go into scoring and how you set up that, but it's basically looking at the attention, right? So we go back to those metrics, the attention that they paid, the annotation, and this PDF does a really good job of laying out. So you as the instructor feel comfortable knowing where the grade's coming from. If you're a person who really wants to understand that, I just dropped that in, but it basically looks at annotation quality. It looks at opening the assignment. It It looks at reading it. It looks at active reading time, getting responses, and then basically upvoting. You can add the upvoting component if you want to give students the edge. If they, if they get a really good comment, you can totally have them be rewarded for that as well. But these are all parameters that you would set, and that's that scoring detail thing. I'll follow back up, Mike, and I will also drop the PDF. I know I have it. I can't find it right now. I'll drop the PDF in this thread. Everybody has access to it after they're done with the meeting anyways. So you can pull that PDF for the actual Canvas integration. But as soon as I saw that, I was going to actually snag it for myself when I went to that training, because I was like, yeah, I've not been involved in the Canvas integration for my courses yet, but I plan on doing that in the fall. So, and I'm sure I'll have doctorate questions for Dr. Ridlen for that as well. All right.
Does anyone have any last questions before our wonderful faculty and Perusall experts close for the afternoon? Seriously, if anyone, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Chris. This is Coco. I just want to verify. So the format must need to be PDF. So can I use Word document or a picture or something like that?
Not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily need to be a PDF. I will tell you.
It does. So there's one catch. So currently they don't have the ability to add a Word document. So you cannot add a Word document and have it be annotated upon. But what Jenna's saying is, you can use other formats. So you can add a website, right? But what Perusall is going to do with a website is actually just take a screenshot of that website. They're going to snatch a screenshot, and students would be annotating on top of that website. So they don't have the ability yet to annotate on a live website, but the document does need to be a PDF currently for students to annotate. They don't have the integration yet for the different file types. That was something that I did not know. I've only dumped PDFs because that's my focus, but I had not even thought about dumping something else. But someone was asking about a Word document in one of the last year's workshop questions that we had when we were in the conference. And I only dump PDFs, but you can only dump PDFs or the options that are listed, but there are like video file. You can do MP3s, you can do audio MP3, you can do video MP4. There are some .mov. You can do some other formats, but within documents, it only accepts PDFs at this time.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Dr. Turner, thank you so much for this technology. It's really improved my classes a ton. And Chris, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you for letting us share.
Also, Chris, thank you for getting the integration for Perusall set up for JSU. So thank you for that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, unless anyone has any other questions, I want to say thank you from me and from online at JSU. Obviously, everyone else is saying thank you. We appreciate everything you shared, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye, y'all. Take care.
Bye.